Regular meeting for Monday, July the 3rd, 2006 to order. Will please stand for a prayer from Pastor Filing from the Congregational Church.
Let us unite our hearts in a word of prayer. Gracious and almighty God, we ask thy blessing on these dedicated servants who gather to share in the administration of our city. Guide them in a vision of what Watertown is and can become through the concentrated efforts of everyone in our community. While we gather in prayer this evening, help us to be mindful that this is the eve of the day we celebrate as being the beginning of this nation. Let us ever remember that this nation was born in faith and freedom and continues to explore those possibilities today and in all the seasons to come. We pray these things as a community of citizens working for the well-being of this city. Amen.
Roll call, please, Tracy.
Arbogast.
Here.
Garnis.
Here.
Gisselbeck. Heller. Johnson. Meisenheimer.
Here.
Solberg. Walder.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
And York.
Here.
Thank you.
Need a motion to approve the minutes of the City Council meeting held on June the 19th, 2006. So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Wilson. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 is the application for a new taxi cab company licensed by Mr. William Feller. Tracy?
Thank you. This is an application that doesn't very often come before the council, so I thought it would be appropriate before the public hearing is open to just recap for the council members what the ordinance provides in terms of what should be considered before making a decision on this application. The city ordinance indicates that the application for a new taxi cab company license shall not be granted unless, after a full and fair hearing, the city council finds that the then existing public transportation service is inadequate, that the public convenience and necessity require the commencement of the new service proposed by the applicant, and that the applicant is fit, willing, and able to perform the proposed services. So that's really what you're driving at, or should be driving at, with the public hearing tonight. With that, I'd turn it back to you, Mayor, for the open up the public hearing.
Thank you, Tracy. We'll begin with opening the public hearing for the application for a new taxi cab company. Is there anyone here to speak to the issue? If you would like to, come before the podium and identify yourself.
Good evening. We're Kevin and Deb Seabrands, and we're the owners of Lake City Cab. We have owned Lake City Cab now for 8 years. Mr. Feller, Bill Feller, the gentleman making application, he worked for us for about 5.5 years, up until May of this year. Just a little bit about how we run the cab. The calls do come into our landline at home and then are forwarded out to a cell phone. The main driver on duty has full control over that phone, dispatching and doing calls that he receives and he sees fit to forward on. During the day, we usually only need one cab on duty. We had 2 cabs. We did make 2 cabs available on Friday and Saturday evenings for the past 1.5 years. Just in the last 6 months, we have seen an increase in business on these nights. We did start hearing complaints from the other drivers on how Bill, Mr. Feller, would not share the calls. It was his duty to dispatch, and he wasn't doing the job. Bill was our main driver these nights, so he had control over the phone, dispatching any calls to the other drivers. The backup drivers reported to us that when they finally would get a call from Bill and get to the customer, they found out that the customer had been waiting for quite some time. Several times the customer complained that they had been waiting for over an hour, which frustrated our backup drivers because most of the time they were just waiting around, waiting for Bill to call them to go on a call. According to our other drivers, Bill wouldn't call them until he was backed up maybe six to eight calls. All of our drivers are required to complete log sheets of all the calls that they get at night. Bill seldom recorded any missed or canceled calls, which is another thing that Mr. Feller is alleging, not getting to everyone. If people were not getting picked up, we do feel it was his obligation to let us know. We as the owner were unaware of the problem until the other drivers started complaining to us. We then tried to address the issue with Bill several times. We finally had to dismiss Bill in May, so he worked with us until May. We do feel he was sabotaging our business by making the customers wait, only in turn to turn around and start his own business. We have put a third cab on the last 3 weekends. Kevin has been there overseeing the situation. The wait time has been greatly reduced because the drivers are now stationed uptown. Most rides do not even require a phone call. We're right there and we pick them up. In regards to the petition Bill has been circulating, we witnessed him gathering signatures late at night. We feel that these are not true and valid petitions because most of the people's judgment would be impaired while drinking. It has been noted that there may be people who have signed the petitions twice, more than one time. The number of people who have signed these petitions that he has created wouldn't even be a percent of the city's population, and we're wondering how many people are even citizens. In comparing surrounding cities, the city of Sioux Falls has a population of 150,000 with 5 cab services. That works out to be approximately 1 cab service per 30,000 people. The city of Aberdeen has a population of 25,000 and 1 cab service. We feel that Watertown is in line with the surrounding cities. We were approached by the city of Pierre to go there and start a cab service. They were even offering to subsidize us annually. We felt very strong about staying in Watertown, but honored that they did ask us. The average number of calls Sunday through Thursday is about 1 to 2 calls per hour. Thursday nights do get a little busier, averaging about 3 calls per hour. Friday and Saturday nights, depending on the calls and where they had to go, each cab can do about 4 calls per hour, which 3 cabs can definitely handle those evenings. Bill is only looking at a small segment of the week. If 2 companies were fighting over the 1 to 2 calls per hour the remaining part of the week, it would be detrimental to one or even both companies. If there were 2 companies, it would be very likely that the customer would call both companies and ride with whoever got there first, wasting time, wasting gas, and making us not available to the people who would be there. Between the transit and our service, we are able to handle the calls during the day. And by adding the 3rd cab on Friday and Saturday nights, we have addressed this issue too. The city relies on the cab to provide a public service. If more than 1 cab service were made to compete, there is a possibility that neither would survive, leaving the city without service. We have found that the 3rd cab that we have added is all that is needed to handle the extra business that we have been experiencing on Friday and Saturday nights. We are established with 6 drivers and the number of vehicles that are needed to fully provide needs to the customers. There are peak times and slow times, all of which need to be covered 24/7. There are breakdowns to consider and all sorts of things that come up in this business. Mr. Feller is being unrealistic if he thinks that 1 person, 1 van, can do the job that we've been doing for 8+ years. While working for us, Mr. Feller has started 2 different companies, 2 different businesses, and neither had succeeded. One being a tour bus business, the other a restaurant. We have been grateful for having the 8+ years with this business. It has provided jobs for the people who have worked for us over the years, and has been something that we've enjoyed doing and want to continue doing for the people of Watertown. The ordinance clearly states, and I guess Mr. Turbak read it, I don't need to read it again, but it is his obligation to show where we are inadequate. We feel that he will fail in that. We do feel that our service is adequate, and we feel that Mr. Feller cannot in fact operate adequately himself with one employee, one van. Bill is a disgruntled employee, ex-employee, who sabotaged our business to start his own. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak to the issue? Bill, do you want to step forward?
Thank you. Sorry I was a little late. I'm sure that they informed you, I worked for the Lake City Cab for 5.5 years. So and most of that was evening hours, but I would get called in occasionally to do daytime hours. So I worked for a lot of the last time I was working 6 nights a week. And so I got a pretty good idea. Sunday night I didn't drive, but the other nights I have a pretty good idea what was going on and the number of clientele that were calling. A couple weeks ago I went out and got about 180 signatures of unhappy customers of Lake City Cab because of what we, and I, as an employee of Lake City Cab, couldn't fulfill their requests. And dangerous enough it was to answer the cell phone while driving. I obviously didn't record all the calls, and many of them were said I just couldn't get there. We couldn't get there for half hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on who was still there when we got there. So I got signatures from about 180 in 3 different areas. I'll read them. In recent months, I have called Lake City Cab and have been very inconvenienced by the length of time it took for them to provide service. I feel there's a definite need for another taxi service in Watertown. The second one, in recent months, I've called Lake City Cab and been told that it would be at least 30 minutes before I could get service, or I waited at least 30 minutes for service and opted for another means of transportation. And after 2 o'clock, when there aren't very many people on the streets, the most obvious thing, I didn't write this in, the most obvious thing was they drove themselves in conditions they shouldn't have been driving. And third was, in recent months, as a bartender, I've called Lake City Cab and been told it would be 30 minutes or more before anyone could come for our customers. At closing time, our customers have been asked to wait outside for an indefinite time. And I even had one of the signatures say that he was ticketed for loitering while waiting for a cab. The need for the taxi services has become stronger all the time, of course, with the more recent, like a year ago, the increased DUI laws, and even more recently, in I believe this spring, was extra money the city had for DUI enforcement. And so this spring, very frequently I would come home after my shift and tell Kevin that there's just no way we could keep up to the business calls that we were getting. And so I know that there is a need for another service, and I'm not trying to take away their business, run them out of business, or be the only cab service in town. I'm trying to be an additional service for something that's sorely needed in town. And I wouldn't stick my neck out for just being a disgruntled employee to try to run them out of business. I know that I heard them say that the other cities and how many taxi cabs are in Sioux Falls or Aberdeen and whatever. They're going by population. They're not. I didn't hear them say how many cabs were on duty for each of these cab services in Sioux Falls, or say 5 cab companies for 150,000 people. They may have had 10 cabs in a company rather than 1 or 2. So I don't think that's a fair comparison. I believe they've said that at one time that they tried to make a statement, a normal day or poor day on their books of half a dozen customers or how many ever they had, and make it look like a good day. I would come in and turn in numerous times, and more recently, especially, the more is getting to be $200 in my 6 or 7 or 8 hour shift. And that was not all the calls, of course, the other, particularly on Friday and Saturday nights, there were other calls. So I have a good idea that of how much is being turned, particularly on my shift, my normal shift. I guess maybe a need that, besides the need for numbers, is the need for competition in Watertown. For the life of me, I have not been able to understand why we would charge a basic rate of $5 and $1 a mile over, and then get out, say, to the casino and charge $17, or around the lake, another $2 surcharge, or to Henry, and instead of $1 a mile over the 5, it would be $2 a mile, $1 a mile each way. I think that was some gouging, and I certainly think that I could provide some competition that would help the customers and even create more business. So I guess that's basically what I have to say tonight.
Do you have a business plan, Bill?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Do you have it with you that you could share with
Well,
us?
I've got it on a scratched and thing. I haven't. It's nothing. I don't think I'm having to go to a bank to get started. I've got my vehicle. The insurance is another major cost.
And you're going to provide 24-hour service?
Yes.
When are you going to sleep?
I've got. I don't see him here right now. I've got one person that I thought might be here tonight that wants to drive for me. I've had numerous requests of other people driving.
Have you hired these people yet?
No, I don't see a reason to hire them until I've got a license.
So what are your rates going to be?
Probably basically the same as I start with, probably a $5 a minimum. And straight across, I don't see, when you can get, 5 to 10 miles per hour miles per gallon more out in the country driving 55 than you can in town, the rate shouldn't go up. So I'm not going to charge that surcharge, over and above, what.
But you're going to have one vehicle.
No.
You're going to have two vehicles?
I intend to get another vehicle, yeah. I've got one waiting for me in North Carolina as soon as, with my son, that if granted the license, I will get as soon as I can. And yeah, I'll have more vehicles and more drivers. I don't intend to do it all myself.
So the deficiency that the present service is demonstrating is they don't have enough cabs, and the other deficiency that they have is the fact they charge too much. Is that it?
Not that they don't have enough cabs, that they don't have enough cabs on duty at the times
I see.
that are needed, and whether or not they've got 3 cabs, 5 cabs, 10 cabs, they've got to have manpower to do it. I have a rapport, I think, that is excellent with customers, and I can get what I need.
Council members have any questions?
Yeah, you alluded to the fact that there's a lot of calls at, say, 2 o'clock when the establishments close uptown. What about the balance of that 24-hour day then? How do you intend to make it that way, financial-wise?
Like I said, I don't intend to take over another, for them. This would be a second business in town. I will, if anybody knows me, I'm a hard worker. I'm not afraid to delve into something. If I will do it as needed. I'm used to staying up all night, and I will cover what I can, and get other drivers to do it. But like I said, no, I'm not trying to do it everything myself.
This is always a particularly hard one. We've dealt with it a couple times since I've been on the council. It's one of the few businesses that we actually have an ordinance that controls the amount of businesses. Other business, the free enterprise system rules, and may the best man win. That's the way everything else in town seems to work, except with the exception of the cab service. And of course, that's because we don't get so many popping up that nobody makes it, and then we end up with none. And then we do, like somebody referred to Pier, trying to subsidize a cab company just to be in their city. So it is difficult. It's especially difficult when there seems to be a lot of undercurrent with employee-employee relationships, because then it kind of skewers our thinking, or my thinking anyway, about what's factual and what's just disgruntlement. You know, that's what I don't know at this point, because now of all the things that I've heard tonight, I didn't hear any of these things really before. So, you know, it's a really difficult thing for us to try and decide who's going to have this business and who's not. I would like to ask I know we have a couple police officers back there. What do you guys hear about our cab service in town? Does it seem to be sufficient? You guys are dealing with some of the same people in the middle of the night that these folks are talking about. Could we have any comments?
I could offer you some, but I don't have any.
Thank you.
Frankly, Bill, I think your responsibility is to come in here and present us statistics, to present us a concrete, clear plan. You haven't shown us anything in your ability to go into a bar at night and get people to sign signatures. And you haven't shown us anything in writing that shows us that there is a significant problem, and over a certain period of time, you haven't demonstrated to us your ability to put 24/7 cab service on the road that's not going to, you know, just destroy both cab systems. We want, when we would need to make a good decision, to have the type of statistics in front of us that show we've got just this huge growing problem and we just can't keep up with it. Petition signatures in a bar, to me, don't cut it, especially, you know, as one of the other council members brought up at a different meeting. It appears that some people sign multiple times. You know, I just have a problem with your whole plan. And if you were to walk into a bank to try and finance your plan, you wouldn't get any financing with a handwritten piece of paper as a business plan. And for us to make a decision that says we need to add something else to the community like this, it's tough.
Any other comments from the council?
Yeah, Paul, Bill, I understand a second cab company started up in Aberdeen and couldn't make it, and they're a little bit larger city than we are. Could you tell me how you plan on making it when two couldn't make it in Aberdeen?
I think the signatures of, you know, they were signatures, and you know, I would admit there might have been a couple signatures signed by a wife or her husband standing there. I didn't have, you know, the thing. I was talking to people and someone else would, you know, the petition around, but that you know, these are valid signatures. You know, it's not like a voter signature. You have to be in this city and whatever that. But this is a show of backing of an awful lot of people that I have, you know, given rides to, and particularly so that's, you know, whether or not I have, you know, covered all these, you know, depending on what hours I can, you know, I need my time off and put on another driver. But I definitely, I think I've shown a support for an awful lot of people.
I just have one comment I'd like to make. I was the one that reviewed part of the signatures that you had written down, and I'm the one that said that several people, or some people, had signed more than once. And you made the statement at a previous committee meeting, we talked this same thing over. You, in 1 hour and a half, you got 160 signatures.
This was 3 nights,
3 nights, you got 160 signatures,
180, yeah. And you know, starting from
all by yourself?
from evening till, oh yes. I had no difficulty finding people who had, you know, would like a better service.
And did you say it was like between 11:30 and 1 in the morning?
I'm sure I went till 2 o'clock, till closing time, so people were still there. And it was probably 8 to 9 that I would go out.
Okay. To my recollection, I know I've never gotten a complaint on the current taxi cab. You know, if anybody else has, we should maybe voice our opinion. Thanks, Bill.
Well, I have not received any phone calls as to the inadequacy of our present cab service, so, but I have not received one call, so. Has anyone else received any calls?
I have not. Have any of these people ever said why they haven't called? Police department, the mayor, the council? They don't seem to have problems calling us when there's problems going around. did any of them voice an opinion on, yeah, I've called the mayor and talked to him about it and he doesn't do nothing or anything like that?
Chief Vitek, you have the,
Just wanted to qualify that I'm not aware of any.
I got one comment. I wished I could say that I believe Watertown is busy enough to operate 2 cab companies, but really in my heart, I don't believe there is room for 2 cab companies. So I'd like to make a motion to deny
oh, hold
the
it now,
license.
Dennis, we're in the public hearing. Yeah, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Dennis?
No.
No, okay. If not, then is there anyone else that'd like to speak to the issue? If not, then we'll close the public hearing and go to council action. I'll need a motion either to approve or disapprove an application for a new taxi cab company licensed by Mr. William Feller.
I'll make a motion to deny the license.
A motion to deny the license by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Bill. Item number 3 is a portion of mobile outlot number 1. Rick?
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Several actions are in order this evening with regard to mobile outlot 1, less the north 165 feet of the east, 132.5 feet in the northeast quarter, section 35, township 117 north, range 53 west. First of all, I'd like to rearrange or take some items in a little bit different order than they are presented on the agenda. First of all, to have the second reading of ordinance 06-16, which is an ordinance amending the zoning district boundaries of our community by establishing the zoning designation for that property as I-1 Light Industrial District. And Mayor, if you would, open the public hearing, because I think all the information and introductory remarks I would make would apply both to the annexation and zoning.
Okay, I'll begin with the public hearing on ordinance number 06-16, establishing a zoning designation of I-1 Light Industrial. Is there anyone here to speak to the issue?
I would certainly begin remarks in this public hearing. As to location, is there a need for me to bring anything up on the screen in terms of its location? I'm seeing one, no. In general, very briefly, it's located on 21st Street Southwest. There's an abandoned railroad grade. It is located immediately adjacent to that and immediately adjacent to 21st Street with the distribution center for fuel storage, etc., in that northeast quarter of that property. I described its location as being approximately 600 feet south of the Watertown Municipal Airport. The last time we talked about this during the first reading, I was reminded that we have a regional airport, not a municipal airport, so I would clarify that with Eric's help. The petitioners, David Sols and Shirley J. Sols, bring this to you. Their legal counsel is Terry Sutton, another interested party here. The petition for annexation is dated May 5th. Again, the proposed and requested zoning is I-1 Light Industrial. This was before the Plan Commission, and they bring to you their recommendations for annexation and the zoning as I-1 Light Industrial. That occurred on June 7th of this year. General requirements for the I-1 Light Industrial Zoning District. The area needs to be a minimum of 30,000 square feet. Minimum lot width 150, and that's measured along the street. Setbacks are more appropriate in terms of the building permit time, but for your information, the front yard setback will be 50, the side will be 25, and the rear will be 30. This parcel is 5 acres, so certainly meets the requirements. The frontage is 265, which certainly meets the aerial information or the area and frontage requirements that we're going to need. Staff would note that it is currently zoned industrial district in Cottington County. The challenges, however, being the county land use and parcel size, being the 5 acres more or less, it doesn't meet the minimum requirements for the current zoning district in Cottington County. Opportunities, if annexed, will be the application of city zoning, the opportunity for city services, especially in the sewer area, and enhanced opportunities for the protection and management of our airspace, that being the FAA requirements. Note that adjacent properties across 21st Street Southwest are annexed already and zoned I-2 heavy industrial. to the east and light industrial to the south. Adjacent county properties are zoned agricultural. I'll note that the property is platted. Further subdivision of the property will require additional platting, but that'd be the subject of a subsequent meeting. As to annexation, staff recommendation and that of the Plan Commission in their resolution 2006-26 is for annexation into the city limits, again with no zoning designation until such time as we hold this hearing as to zoning. And the Plan Commission brings to you their recommendation as to zoning as I-1 light industrial in their resolution 2006-27.
Is there anyone else to speak before the public hearing on the ordinance number 6-16? If not, then we'll close the public hearing and go to council action for approval of ordinance number 06-16, establishing a zoning designation of I-1 light industrial. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Garno, seconded by Alderman Giselbeck. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Rick?
As to the annexation, Mayor, a motion now would be in order to approve the annexation in accordance with the Plan Commission's recommendation.
That's on resolution number 6-33?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes, Mayor.
Well, that's the council for a motion to approve the annexation resolution number 06-33. Is there a motion to approve? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Rick. Item number 4 is consideration of bids for construction of an animal nutrient management system. Mike Williams.
You know, most of the community's out to the lake having a good time, and we're here working. This is a dedicated bunch, I want to say this.
So make it quick.
First of all, do we do the, it's gonna be quick. Which one do we do first?
Let's deal with the June 20th bids first, Mike, and then we'll
Okay,
move on
we
to the others.
let bids and accepted them on June 20th, and only one bid was received, and the bid was inadequately prepared, and that he did not have a bid bond. We checked with the laws, and our city attorney advised me that we could not proceed with that bid. So we rebid it. We got on the phone, made some phone calls to companies that we found on the web, and did get 3 bids today. And I'm making a motion that we accept the Whetstone Ag Supply bid of $72,817.95, which is a considerable reduction from the first bid we got.
Stan, do we have to reject the council action, reject the bid for June 20th?
That'd be appropriate, Mayor,
Okay.
yes.
So could I have a motion then to reject the June 20th bid?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Johnson. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next to July 3rd bids, accepting the bid of the Whetstone Ag Supply, Wilmot, South Dakota for $72,817.95. Is that correct, Mike?
That's correct.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike.
That's as quick as I can make it, whoever asked that.
Okay. Item number 5 is the approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Watertown Community Foundation establishing the City of Watertown Grants Program. Tracy?
Thank you. This memorandum of understanding comes to you with the recommendation for approval by the Finance Committee. And I know Jan DeBerg from the Community Foundation is here with a brief presentation, and will certainly answer any questions you have for her. Just by way of introduction, on the memorandum of understanding would be between the City of Watertown and the Community Foundation. The City Council, you'll notice in the draft memorandum in your packet, there's a blank there to be filled in with a dollar amount, and that ultimately that would be filled in as a result of a decision by the City Council in terms of how much you wish to budget to be granted to local nonprofit organizations. That's a deviation from our current or past practice in the council making the individual decisions on how much goes to each nonprofit. The scenario that we're proposing here, and that's been recommended by the Finance Committee, is that the council determine the total dollar amount that is to be allocated to nonprofits, and then turn over the nuts and bolts of the decision-making process and the grant application process and the accountability for those grant dollars to the Community Foundation. And with that, I would turn it over to Jan. If, Jan, you have some other comments to make?
Thank you. I just also brought you in a packet a couple of items that relate to this program. The first one is the grant application and grant application guidelines. You will notice that they are for general operating support, which is a little different than the typical grants awarded by the Watertown Community Foundation. So we have drafted a different grant application and a different grant application guidelines.
Okay. I guess the council would like to just kind of discuss this as to, you know, each of
Certainly.
their positions on this possibility. And so, council, would you like to
Well,
make some comments?
I know this has been before the Finance Committee, or I found that out tonight, I guess, and maybe it's my fault for not keeping up with what's going on in the Finance Committee, but I really have a problem without more background on the reason why we want to do something like this. It may be more convenient, and there may be some other reasons for doing it, but I don't know of any. And I really would like some more time to think about this before we went ahead and this is really a matter of giving away the city's money without having any control over it. And I have a problem with that personally, and I don't know if anybody else does or not, but I'd like some more time to think about this.
I rise to a point of order. There should not be discussion without a motion on the floor.
Therefore, okay,
Well, for purposes of discussion only, I'll make a motion at this point that we approve this concept, and then we can get into discussion and go from there.
there's a motion by Alderman Johnson to approve this concept. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Wilson. Any further discussion?
Well, I'll give a little bit of background. The reason the concept came up is because we regularly, every year, get requests from a large number of nonprofit organizations for support from the city. And we have generously supported a number of these organizations, but in our budgeting process, these groups come in, and up until last year, they came before us for about 2 minutes with a presentation before the full council at the budget process, and we just pretty much blanket moved everything along. Last year, I believe we shifted it off to a couple of council members to meet with each of these groups in an afternoon session or a couple of sessions, and went through it in a little bit more detail. But the idea that perhaps there's a better way to give this money out to the organizations that need some help from the community would be to use the groups that are already out there doing it, which is the Community Foundation. They regularly interact with all of these organizations. I believe every organization we funded last year, you funded with the exception of perhaps one.
Yes,
And
two as a matter,
there are
but
two of them.
neither one had applied
Right.
for funding from us.
And so we thought, perhaps let's give it a shot, a 1-year trial, to see if this is maybe a better way to do that, that there's more accountability because you have a better idea as a community foundation interacting with the United Way as to how these groups are funded and the types of funding that they need. You have more background than we do as a council, and so let's give it a shot. That's the groundwork for the idea.
I must speak in opposition to this proposal. Approving a memorandum is approving surrendering my responsibilities as public officials for taxpayers' money, and I just cannot go along with that whatsoever. Now, in addition to that, at the Government Affairs Committee of the Chamber last Friday morning, this topic was discussed at length, and a poll was taken, and it was interesting that 12 out of the 13 people who attended that meeting, 12 opposed it. oppose this proposal. And it's interesting also to note that 2 of those 12 are former members of the foundation board. Therefore, I would like to offer a substitute motion to deny or to oppose the approval of the memorandum.
How
Stan-
about if we have a little more conversation before we get into that?
Well, I made that.
Stan, we go with the motion to,
Alderman Garnos has made a substitute motion. I think
so
that
there's a second, then we need a second on that?
you can call for one.
Seconded by Mr. Heller. Any further discussion on that? If
Yes.
not, all, okay, Nancy?
I have just a couple things. To quote former councilperson Sherber, he used to say, wow, this is big, and I can build a strong case on either side. And that's the way I feel about this one. Every year I have some misgivings about when we're doing that during budget hearings, because it's sort of a let's make a deal type of process that we've been going through. We don't put any obligations or any accountability onto those dollars that we attach. If somebody has somebody from their organization that wants to come up here and ask for some dollars, and it's true, we have the choice to grant it or not, but most of the time we have. We've never called for them to come back in and tell us line by line what they're going to have. Now, I do have some concerns with what Mr. Garnis said, because we are relinquishing dollars that are taxpayers' dollars. We've been elected to take care of those dollars. That's our obligation. We shouldn't be just passing that off to the Watertown Community Foundation lightly. Although I think you guys are probably a little bit more qualified and set up to do that, I'd be a lot interested in the critique. I'd be a lot interested in the organization's accountability afterwards. And also, some of the guidelines I know from the Watertown Foundation, from working with you people, wonderful organization, some of the guidelines you have, some of these organizations would be out the door before they ever came in, because their projects or their whatever wouldn't qualify under your rules and regulations. Now, this would be a different application process, is that correct?
This would be a different yes, it would be an entirely different process outside of the grants that we currently award.
Okay.
These dollars, the city would have designated for general operating dollars.
Okay, and after we give you that blanket amount of money, that big amount of money, then would it be first come, first serve? I mean, what would keep one of these nonprofits from doubling what they asked for last year and getting it when they came from you, and somebody else that happened to be down the line 30 days would get nothing?
The way that we foresee this program would work is that if you decided to have the Watertown Community Foundation provide these services for the city, we would send out a letter to those nonprofits that have received funding from you in the past, telling them of the change in the program and requesting that they submit a grant application by an established due date. We would also send out news releases in case there were other nonprofits that had applied last year, perhaps from the city, but had been denied funding, or if there were any other new nonprofits that would be eligible to apply for funding. When the grant applications are received at the Watertown Community Foundation, we would conduct site visits, especially to those nonprofits that we're not currently working with or familiar with. We go out and conduct a site visit. We visit with the directors or the staff about their organization. We get more of a hands-on feel for how the organization is being operated, what their mission is, how they're trying to accomplish their mission. At that point, when the site visits are conducted, we would set up interviews with each and every one of the applicants. Following the interviews, we would send a letter to the grant applicants, either awarding a grant and a specific dollar amount or denying funding. To those that are awarded funding, we would tell them the dollar amount and how to assess those funds. When we typically send out a grant check, we send with it a grant use report, and the nonprofit receiving those funds is required to fill out that grant use report and to provide follow-up for us, and that information has to be obtained by us before they're eligible to receive further funding.
And would it influence the thinking of the board that's issuing these dollars if that organization had come to you as a Watertown Foundation regular grant? I mean, if you'd already given them some under the umbrella of Watertown Community Foundation, would that influence whether they got from some of the city money?
I don't think that it would influence them. I think that they would probably know more about the group or organization, but this review process will be completely different than the other review process that we use on a monthly basis, because these are different funds.
And who are the deciding people? Is it your board of directors?
Yes.
I would just like to say that the board of directors of the foundation are honorable people, as is its executive director.
Thank you, Gordon.
But the point is, they are appointed by various organizations. Are they self-appointed, or how?
No, they are appointed by 5 different organizations. The City of Watertown.
My point is, they are appointed, not elected, and therefore they're not fulfilling their responsibilities to the taxpayers like we have that responsibility.
Mayor, if I might, I'd like to clarify just one thing. Perhaps all of you understand
Yes,
this
Tracy.
already, but it would be unfortunate if anyone misunderstood this. This is an idea that was first discussed at the Finance Committee last winter sometime. I think it was in early January, maybe even before that. But it was an idea that kind of grew out of the sense that the way we were doing this wasn't working very well, and Brad kind of elaborated on that earlier. We tried some changes last year, and I think still at that point there were some strong feelings on the part of council members that the process just wasn't working very well. And so the idea had been hatched that if we could find someone else, some other objective, independent organization that could take the time to do the things that Jan has talked about, go out and visit these organizations, get a better feel for each individual organization and the level of service that they're providing and the importance of the services that they're providing, that perhaps that would be a better way. And it was at that point that the city contacted the community foundation. Jan didn't come to us looking for this. It's going to be nothing but more work for her, I'm sure, if this is approved. And so this isn't something that the community foundation is pursuing from the city. The city is pursuing this from the community foundations. I think it's important for you folks to understand that Jan isn't coming to us, we're coming to her for help.
Thank you, Tracy. Pat?
Mayor, how is the city gonna come up with the amount that they're going to give to the foundation?
I suppose it'd be based on pretty much what we did last year and maybe a little bit for inflation. I guess that, of course, there again, it'd be whatever you as a council would approve.
There again, I think that's...
Pat's question was legitimate, and I don't know how you'd come up with a blanket figure unless you had those people who wanted the money come before the council and ask for it.
Well, we kind of have that from last.
I know, but it changes from year to year. Well,
If you look at just how the last couple.
and don't get me wrong, Jan, I appreciate all the work you've done on this, and
Quite all right.
all the work you're intending to pick up. But I just have a philosophical difference about the whole thing, and I guess that's the bottom line for me.
You know, for the last close to 20 years, the city has given away $500,000 a year, abdicating our responsibilities, giving away money to the county, to the school systems, and we didn't even ask any questions about any of that money was spent. In this particular case, we have a pretty clear idea of what we have done in the past with the various organizations that we've funded. We know, where the money's going to go. We have a very clear accountability, much more than we've ever had with any of the other things that we've done. And so we're not breaking new ground here, but we're doing this in a very clear way that they're going to spend a lot more time and be a lot better at making sure these organizations are funded better than we have.
I think we need to point out, though, that the 20 years that the city council gave money to the townships and the counties and the school districts, we finally realized our error and they eliminated that.
And this may be a chance to recognize another error, Gordon.
Go ahead, Carol, I'm sorry.
I would like to say one thing. This will be so much more professional. Is that the word I want to use? I sat on the committee last year and met with all these nonprofits that came. And I thought, okay, we write them out a check, say, per se, $2,000. The check is gone. Where if we did it with the Watertown Community Foundation, would there be some feedback on where that was spent?
Yes.
And as it sits now, to my knowledge, we give the money and they can go over and buy groceries as far as we know. I mean, we have no accountability once the check is written. And with the Watertown Community Foundation, there would be accountability.
But you don't rectify a mistake by making another mistake, Carol, or making, two errors don't make a right. And if we're doing it wrong to begin with, we certainly don't want to do it wrong again and make it doubly wrong.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I don't believe this would be wrong.
I guess I have one comment. I agree with Nancy and all the positive things she has said about the foundation. I think it's a great tool to give contributions away. But I do feel the same way as Gordy. We're working with taxpayer money, and we're the ones writing the check, and we are the ones responsible for the money. And if there's something that is going wrong, and we write a check and they go, we have the ability to go out and check with any one of these organizations if we think there is something going wrong and check on it as they do with their donors. So I think we just can't be weak-kneed, and we need to take the time and work with taxpayers' money the way the council was elected to do.
Thank you. Larry?
Those are all good words.
But you have more.
But, you know, it came to this point because there was a problem. The Finance Committee addressed the problem. We investigated the problem. We did not do this lightly. And it isn't a matter of abrogating our responsibility at all. I don't know. I've sat through here like about 6 years, and I don't remember once, Dennis, ever going out and following up on any of the money that we've ever given. It's a nice thought, but it just hasn't happened. Now, maybe you're going to be the first one to do that, and I appreciate that. But I just think that it's a system that we've thought about very deeply. I think it deserves an opportunity for a chance. It isn't like we're doing this forever from this point forward. We're saying, hey, we've come up with a prototype where we've got some guidelines that everybody knows what the rules are, rather than somebody says, well, we'll just go up there and, you know, do the dog and pony show is what I called it, and that's what it amounted to. And whoever did the best dog and pony show probably got the most money, or if they had a friend in this organization or that organization that was on the council, you know, there was a lot of that kind of stuff that went on. Not that I ever remember any of it, but I'm sure it probably did. And so I'm saying here's a chance to reduce it to a situation where there is writing, where they have to make the application, where they have to present themselves so that we know what the money is for. They have a mechanism in place where they're going to look at it all favorably. They're going to grant it, they're going to follow it up, and they're going to give us a report. So at the end of this particular venture, if the 9 or 10 of us don't appreciate what we've done, this is it. We can go back to Plan B. And so that's what I'm asking for.
That was one thing I was wondering, if this is a one-year trial basis.
That's my understanding.
And I agree with what Mr. Wilson said. And you all remember people coming up to the microphone and saying, well, here I am. It's late August again. We're putting our budget together. We're asking for the same thing we did before. We make a motion, yes, second it, and they get the money. And we have no idea where it went before, where it went after we gave it.
No,
I served on that committee last year in going through those names and those organizations. And I can assure you, we looked at them pretty close. There were, however, some that came to the council because they were unable to get funding anywhere else, or limited funding. I don't want to mention any of those organizations, but that's what happened.
Okay, thank you, Gordy.
We still can say no.
That's right. Is there any other comments before we go then to a vote on this?
I guess I have one other comment. If we feel that the foundation has a great setup in reviewing and donating and everything else, maybe with the taxpayers' dollars, we should adopt their system.
Thank you, Dennis. Al, you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess You know, we talk about no accountability. I guess that's our own fault for not requesting that, you know, when we gave the money out. And that's something we should probably put in as a stipulation.
I do like George's motion. I think now everybody's kind of gotten the feel of it. We could have until the next council meeting to.
It
I'm
was
sorry.
Gordy's motion.
I'm not sure what Gordy's motion was.
George's first motion was to delay this until the next.
No.
I'm sorry, Gordy, or would you?
For the record, please, would the, Stan, would you clarify the motion that we're going to be voting on here real soon?
Well, my understanding is that Alderman Johnson first moved to approve the concept, and then let's have some discussion. Then Alderman Garnos moved to reject this concept, and that was seconded by Mr. Heller. So the motion on the floor is the substitute offered by Alderman Garnos.
And that's what we're going to vote on. Are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of not approving the memorandum of understanding with the Watertown Community Foundation, vote aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Okay, on the substitute motion, Mr. Meisenheimer,
Yes.
Solberg, Walder,
No.
Wilson,
No.
York,
No.
Arbogast,
No.
Garnis,
Yes.
Gisselbeck,
Yes.
Heller,
Yes.
and Johnson.
No.
Count 5 votes in favor, 5 opposed, Mayor.
Okay, I vote no.
If I could,
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't vote, can I?
my understanding is this would involve an expenditure of public money, and so, Mayor, you can't
I
vote
can't
to break a
vote.
tie.
Okay, it's a tie.
I would offer a second substitute motion that we just postpone action on this until the next meeting. I think we need to have some more discussion among us, and I was hoping that was what your original
George was going to start.
motion was going to
Okay,
be.
all right. Stan, where are we at on then with Brad's original motion? Do we have to vote on that then?
Well, I get, since the substitute didn't prevail, you can vote on the original motion since the substitute motion failed.
So we should vote on the original
Brad's
motion.
motion is back on the floor because the substitute failed.
But now he made a substitute motion.
Oh, I guess that one went right past me, Mayor. So.
It did me too.
Did it get a second?
No.
I'll second
Oh,
it.
hold on now. We have a second by Mr. Heller. Any further discussion?
What was, I missed it as well.
Postpone.
Until the next meeting.
Oh, my.
Can that be done, Stan?
Absolutely.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Johnson and a second by Mr. Heller to postpone this to another time. We're probably going to form a committee or so to discuss this. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Jan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good debate, Council. Very good debate. Moving on to number 6, the preliminary architectural services relating to the Terry Redland Freshwater Institute Environmental Education Center, and that will be Brad.
You all should have received kind of a schematic of a proposal to put an addition onto the south end of the Discovery Center at the Bramble Park Zoo. A few years back, Terry Redland donated proceeds of one of his paintings to the city of Watertown, and we currently have about $300,000 in a trust fund. And Terry had asked that we use that money to develop an environmental education center in the city of Watertown. We have worked on a number of different possibilities, but we've kind of settled on tying into the zoo and putting on addition there that would be a combination of Terry Redland, the city, and Game Fish and Parks. Game Fish and Parks has an outdoor education center in Sioux Falls, and they've recently put an outdoor education center and a regional facility in Rapid City, and they're interested in doing something in Watertown. And what we would like to do at this point is take some of Terry's trust fund money, $3,800, to engage Dave Todd with Todd Architects to do a little better drawing than I can do and come up with a little better cost estimate than I can do, and then bring that forward for additional conversation before the Parks Board, the City Council. That's something that Game Fish and Parks can take to the state level to begin some budget conversations at the state. But I think this is an opportunity to create a wonderful facility. We own all of the land along the river between 3rd Avenue and 10th Avenue. We're looking at doing some additional trail development in there. And this facility would provide additional classroom space for the zoo, which right now is very short on space with the demands that they have. So I think this is a preliminary step to give us better information on which to potentially build a nice environmental education center in Watertown.
Thank you, Brad. So, do we have a motion then to approve a budget contingency transfer of $3,800 to the Lake Compesca Fund?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Giselbeck and seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor,
I have a
excuse me,
question, sorry
Alderman
about
Garnos.
This is in coordination with the Parks Department.
Roger Adams has been sitting in, as well as Dan Miller from the zoo. We've had a couple of meetings with Game Fish and Parks. I know that Roger's bought it before, the park board, just in preliminary discussion. It has not gone to a highly developed level yet, because this is kind of the next step to get it there.
Therefore, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next is the approval of Todd Architect's proposal. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Johnson. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7 is the authorization of funding of dewatering costs under contract with Gene Day Excavating Incorporated for the Derby Downs Sanitary Sewer Project. Dave Peterson?
Good evening. You have in your packet a letter from Gene Day Excavating requesting a change order for the Derby Downs Sanitary Sewer Project for dewatering. They determined that there was water there that would prevent them from installing the sanitary sewer to the clubhouse area. And we brought this before the Finance Committee, and they had recommended going ahead with this. The contractor has completed all of the dewatering on the project, so we know what the final figure is, and that was for 548 feet of dewatering, which would amount to a total of $19,408.48 for the total change for the dewatering that was needed to install the sanitary sewer.
How much is that again, Dave? 19,000 what?
$19,408.48.
Okay. Could I have a motion then to approve the dewatering cost for $19,408.48? So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Johnson. Any further discussion?
Was there some reason that they thought they wouldn't have to dewater?
Well, we had talked with another engineer who had done some work out there as far as the sanitary sewer that was installed out there, and we were told that there wasn't any dewatering down at that end, but there was considerable amount of water.
All right, did all bidders that bid this particular project, did anybody include dewatering process charges?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
They're all being treated equal. Any other questions? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave. Next is the number 8 is the approval of a contract change order to the agreement with Gene Day Excavating Incorporated for the Endries Industrial Park Sanitary Sewer Project. And that would be Dave again.
This is a change order for an additional 27 feet of pipe and associated bedding material for that pipe. The sewer wasn't stubbed out quite as far from the curb as the other plans had shown that we were using to start with, so there was an additional 14 feet needed to complete the project as it was designed.
And how much was that change order, Dave?
And that is for a change order of $356.16.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion then to approve that contract change order?
So moved.
So moved by Alderwoman Walter. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Heller. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Dave. Next, we have the authorization for the mayor to sign the state water plan application for the First Avenue North Extension Storm and Sanitary Sewer Project. Herb?
Thank you, Mayor. Provided at your desktop is a revised copy of that application based on some revised numbers we got from Austin Engineering on Friday. The purpose of this application is to get the storm and sanitary sewer portion of the First Avenue project on the plan so that here in a couple months, staff can turn around and come back to you and ask for permission to submit an application for an SRF loan. We've received Austin Engineering's estimate for the project, estimated at $5.1 million, of which will be approximately $1.1 million will be storm sewer and approximately $1 million will be sanitary sewer. That includes engineering and contingency costs. It's been suggested that the city use SRF money to cover the storm sewer costs and use the city's sewer fund revenues to cover the sanitary sewer. As of now, we're submitting the entire project for the state water plan application, and then we'll wait for the budget process to be completed before we actually submit the SRF application. You'll also note that this application includes a request for non-point incentive rate funds. Once again, the city will attempt to leverage some of the interest money from this loan to supplement the EPA 319 program in the area of animal nutrient management, filter strips, grass waterways, shore and stream bank restoration, education, and outreach. There's no guarantees on this loan money, but if granted, it could free up somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000, depending on how much money we actually apply for in the SRF process. This request comes with the Public Works Committee recommendation for approval from the last meeting, and therefore I'd request permission for the mayor to sign the application to get the First Avenue project on the state water plan.
Is there a motion, please? So moved by Alderman Garnos and seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Herb. Next, number 10 is appointment of Deb Ernst as an alternate to the Board of Adjustment. Carrie Carlson, due to her business request, had to go to Florida for an extended period, and so we have only one alternate on the Board of Adjustment, and we need to have two in order to make sure we always have a quorum. And so Deb Ernst has been asked if she would serve in that position, and she has accepted, and I just need council approval. Deb is the daughter of former Mayor Herb Jensen, and I believe Deb is also like a teacher of a Lake Area Tech, I believe. So if I could have a motion then to approve. So moved by Alderman Johnson, seconded by Alderman Giselbeck. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 11 is a motion to approve resolution number 6-35, superseding resolution number 4-35, authorizing the city to become a South Dakota Retirement System Special Pay Program Unit. Tracy?
Thank you. The authorization for the city to become a South Dakota Retirement System Special Pay Program Unit was approved by the council back in 2004. This resolution makes some technical changes to that earlier resolution, referring now to the codified law rather than the legislative bill that was passed that year. The original resolution was prepared in a format that had been provided to the city by the retirement program, and they are now asking that we make these modifications, presuming that we intend to continue to participate in this program. If you do have any questions about that particular program or how it works, I'd certainly try to answer those, but I would recommend this as a resolution to simply clean up some housekeeping issues.
Is there a motion to approve resolution 06-35? So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman Walter. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 12 is the authorization for the police department to participate in a Watertown Community Foundation Women in Giving Grant Program. And Chief Vitek? Or excuse me, is Officer Toomey going to speak? Yes. Hi, Officer Toomey.
Hi. Good evening. I am Officer Toomey, the school resource officer here in Watertown, and I'm here today just to get your approval for an application for a grant through the Watertown Community Foundation. The grant is 100%, $689.74.
Could we have a motion, please?
So moved. I'll second
Motion
it.
by Alderwoman Arbogast and seconded by Alderwoman York. Is there any further discussion? If not,
Were you a little nervous sitting back there? Are you going to ask for a grant from?
Yes, sir, I was.
all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Officer Toomey. Item number 13 is authorization to advertise for bids for the airport maintenance shop paving project. Eric?
Okay, good evening. In the 2006 budget, we had a $10,000 set aside to do some maintenance paving outside at the airport. I did an initial cost estimate, that's how $10,000 initial cost estimate in 2005 or mid-2005, and that's how we came across on the 10,000. But I got a quote from McLaughlin and Schultz before I was going to do construction, and they had a quote at $17,915 to do that project. So that's over the amount to actually bid, and what I'm asking for authorization for is to bid with the consideration that you'd actually be doing a transfer of about $8,000 of contingency funds to do that. That is about it. If you have any questions, I can sure answer them, but what I'm asking for authorization is to go out for bids, and it will result in a transfer of contingency funds. So,
Of $8,000?
whatever the amount will be over 10,000 will be contingency funds.
And we're assuming it'll be around 8,000, Eric?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
guess.
Is there a motion then for that approval? So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Wilson. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Next is a motion to approve the bills and payroll as presented and authorize payment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Johnson, seconded by Alderman Giselbeck. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next is the open, and Chief Vitek would like to speak in regards to first reading of an ATV ordinance.
Good evening. You'll recall that I provided the Safety Committee some statistics that generated this proposed revision. Essentially, since January the 1st through yesterday, we've received 92 complaints at the Watertown Police Department on ATVs. In particular, the majority of those complaints have been off-road usage. The majority of those complaints have come in the evening time. Our peak period is between 6 and 9 p.m., specifically in the northwest and southwest portions of the city. Our two hot spots, if you will, are Golf Course Road in the vicinity of Derby Downs and also on 212 in the vicinity of the elevator out towards the city limits. So we've had 92 complaints, with the vast majority of those being off-road usage. As a result of that, the command staff of the Watertown Police Department met several times, met with the city attorney, Stanton Fox, to look at the existing ordinance. And so I come before you tonight for first reading with something that we collectively came up with. It's ordinance number 0615, modifying or the revisions of chapter 19.14 for off-road vehicles. And in a nutshell, what we're defining here is an off-road vehicle being anything that is self-propelled two or more wheeled vehicle designated primary to be operated on land other than highways, and includes but is not limited to all-terrain vehicles. And then also the thing that we've proposed in this revision, which I believe all of you have a copy of, is that we're asking in this revision for consideration by you all that these vehicles fall under the same requirements that a motorcycle would fall under, that they be tagged, that they have to be insured, that there's certain equipment requirements, that the same thing we expect of our motorcycles, and predominantly that they would not be, it would not be okay to operate these things off-road, that the only proper usage would be on-road unless, of course, you're on private property. The exception to the rule would be for police officers who are driving the ATVs, and the agreement that we reached with Sheehan's to operate these anywhere in the city limits. That's in it in a nutshell. We have provided a copy to the public opinion, Stanton Fox did, and so that should be publicized heavily. We anticipate going on What's Up and answering any questions that the public may have as a result of those news media releases that we're going to be doing. But this is just the first reading tonight. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief Vitek.
Thank you.
You'd also like to discuss about Camp Chance, is that
Yes,
correct?
I would.
Okay.
I just wanted to remind each and every one of you that Camp Chance starts a week from today, next Monday, and I want to tell you that the community has been overwhelming. We have received in excess of $7,000 in donations. Even more important, in my opinion, is we have an ample amount of police officers, deputy sheriffs, highway patrol, game and fish that are volunteering, donating their time, as well as many community members to work with some of our kids. We have 38 first and second graders signed up for the first week. We have 30 third and fourth graders signed up, and I believe we have 30 fifth and sixth graders signed up as well. Please wear those t-shirts that you were given tonight. Come on out and interact with these kids. We've just had a tremendous amount of support, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Chief Vitek. Is there anything else to come before the open? If not, then we'll move on to old business. Is there any old business? Move on to number 17, new business. Is there any new business? Are there any, excuse me, yes, Larry.
Will we be hearing from Mike Mullen or Roger Adams, Mike on the library, just how that's going, Roger on the pool, how that's going? They're here, are they prepared to do anything?
Excuse me, Roger, I think you could come up and tell us how popular the pool is. I was there today, and it was packed. I drove by.
Well, I love statistics, but I'm sorry I didn't bring them with me. But I mean, we've been very pleased with the usage. We've sold in excess of our projected season passes. Our daily admissions at the rate they're going will exceed what we had projected. I believe the average daily attendance is about 900 per day. That's in the afternoon swim and the evening swim. Heard all positive comments in terms of what the facility has to offer the community, and I think at this point we're real happy with the usage and the way it's turned out.
And the concession stand, how's that turned out, Roger?
Way beyond our expectations. We generated in the first month what we'd projected we'd generate in the entire year. Now, you know, that might just be because we're poor at projecting things that we don't normally deal with, but you know, in the end, the amount of subsidy that the pool will have, we hope, is no greater and hopefully less than what our other pool was. And that was kind of our goal.
How about with those miles of piping, and how's that gone, Roger? Just, I mean, are you pleased with the way the construction and all of the things came together for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, everything's still under warranty, and I mean, there's a lot of mechanical to it, so there's always little things that are, you know, that come up throughout a day's operation, but all in all, nothing, you know, out of the ordinary in terms of mechanics.
Thank you, Roger, very much.
Any truth, Roger, that you're planning now to put a roof over it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you, Gordy. Mike? How's the library coming?
Well, if you've driven by it recently, Nancy, there is a roof over portions of it. Not much, that's correct. It is called extensive remodeling. Probably the biggest comments that I've heard are just your reaction is, wow, we didn't realize you were taking all the walls down. Well,
that was
when
a
you're
negative
building,
reaction too by the
Pardon?
community. That was negative, I must say, by the community.
Very few people that I've spoken to have had that. There have been a few, yes. But if you realize we are expanding on 3 sides, the 4th side is where the new entrance is going to be. Basically, the structure that was there is being continued on. The walls that were there were what I would, I'm not a contractor, but I would call them curtain walls. They were not supporting walls. What supports the building is the steel beams that are there. Those are still there. And one corner where the mechanical room was, that is a structure, some walls that are being reused, and incidentally, 2 of those 4 walls just kind of stand there out in space. They have to be attached to something, and they will be. The project is on schedule. Good. In fact, we are a little bit ahead of schedule. If you get out of your car and walk up to the outside of the tape around there. Don't go inside without checking in. You can look in and see that they have put most of the footers down. They're still working on that. There's some area on the north side where they need to do that. Then you'll start seeing the, what do they call it, foundations go on top of those footers, and then they start doing the slab, and then you'll see the walls. The projections are that you'll see the walls and see it enclosed by the end of September.
I think, Mike, the reason I say it was a negative response is because most people looked at our library as a pretty beautiful facility, and they were happy it was going to be added on to. And less than a year ago, we were trying to make a decision whether or not to stay in the building during the remodeling or move out of the building during the remodeling. And then all of a sudden, they see their library completely destroyed. I think it blindsided people, and I think they were unhappy with that. Hopefully, the new building will make everybody happy again.
Well, I hope so too, Nancy, because it's really going to be an addition to the community. And I will apologize if anybody feels that they were blindsided. It was never our intent to do so. We have always tried to be as straight up front about what was going to happen as we could.
I think it was also pretty clear that if we had tried to stay in there and do it, it would have cost us $1 million plus more than what we are doing now. So
we were told in the early design stages that if we stayed in, it would take another 6 months and an additional $500,000.
So, very good. Well, thank you, Mike, very much. Is there any liaison member reports? If not, we'll need to go into executive session for a few minutes on regards to contract negotiations, and I don't anticipate any action when we come out of that. So could I have a motion to go into executive session? So moved by Alderman Solberg, a second by Alderman Johnson. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go into executive session.